The space station called Eternal Dawn floated in the darkness between stars. It was old, very old. Thousands of species had walked its halls over millions of years. But today, like every day for the past 3,000 years, only one species truly mattered. The head arrived, pressed his soft body against the wall as the delegation walked past. He was a Pelion, a species made of something like living gel. His people had no bones, no hard parts at all. They were peaceful traders who had survived by never fighting anyone. When the walked by, tried to make himself as small as possible. There were 5 of them, each one stood 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in scales that looked like black metal. They had 4 arms, each one ending in claws that could cut through steel. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light of the corridor. When they breathed, small clouds of hot air came from their mouths. At the front walked the High Commander of all military forces. He was the largest of them. A scar ran down the left side of his face, a mark from a battle he had won long ago. He walked like he owned everything around him. In a way, he did. They did not conquer through war alone. They conquered through fear. Every species in the galaxy knew what they were. They were the ultimate predators. Their home planet Prime was classified as a Category 9. This was the highest classification that existed. The planet had active volcanoes everywhere. The air was filled with toxic gases. The ground shook with earthquakes every day. And the creatures that lived there were monsters, giant beasts with armored skin and poison fangs, flying predators with wingspans of 50 feet, things that lived in the ground and could swallow a ship whole. They had evolved to survive all of it. They could breathe toxic air. Their scales could resist fire and acid. If you cut off one of their arms, it would grow back in a few weeks. They could go without food for months. They could see in complete darkness. No other species came close. Entered the council chamber and took his seat. The chair was larger than all the others, built specially for bodies. Around him sat representatives from 100 different species. Some were small and furry. Some were made of crystal. Some floated in tanks of water because they could not survive in air. All of them looked at with the same expression. Fear. Ambassador sat in the seat next to. He was an species with 6 legs and large compound eyes. They were the oldest species in the council. They kept the records of galactic history going back millions of years, had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species go extinct. He had learned one important lesson in all that time. Power always won. The meeting began with boring business, trade routes, mining rights, border disputes. Did not pay attention. These small matters did not concern him. They took what they wanted. If anyone complained, they were reminded of what happened to species that complained. They had complained once. They no longer existed. Halfway through the meeting, received a message on his personal device. His compound eyes widened. He read the message 3 times to make sure he understood it correctly. Then he stood up and raised one of his legs to request attention. The council fell silent. "I have received an urgent transmission from our deep space sensors," said. His voice was dry and clicking, like the sound of insects. "A new species has been detected." This was not unusual. New species were discovered all the time. Most of them were primitive. Some were advanced enough to join the council. None of them mattered to the "Where?" asked, his voice deep and rumbling like thunder. "At the edge of the galaxy. A small yellow star with 8 planets. The 3rd planet appears to be inhabited." Classification of the planet. Looked at his device again. He blinked several times. "The readings are strange. We cannot classify it properly. The data does not make sense." Laughed. It was a terrible sound, like rocks grinding together. "Send a scout ship. Find out what soft little creatures live there. Add them to the registry." Around the chamber, other representatives relaxed. Another primitive species. Another world to be and ignored, or perhaps conquered if they felt like it. Raised a trembling appendage. Should we not approach peacefully? Perhaps they could be valuable trading partners. Turned his red eyes toward the Pelion, immediately regretted speaking. The do not trade, said slowly. We take. If this new species has something we want, we will take it. If they resist, we will crush them. This is the way of the galaxy, the strong rule, the weak serve. This has always been true, it will always be true. No one argued. No one ever argued with The meeting continued but found himself thinking about the unknown planet. Something about's confusion bothered him. They were never confused. They had seen everything. What could possibly be strange about a small world at the edge of nowhere? 3 days later, a scout ship left the station. It carried 3 warriors and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. The ship was fast, built for quick missions to unknown territories. The warriors on board were experienced. They had visited dozens of new worlds. The mission was simple: go to the planet, study the inhabitants, report back. The journey took 2 weeks. When they arrived, the warriors looked at the planet on their screens and felt something they had not felt in a very long time. Confusion. The planet was blue and green. Massive amounts of liquid water covered the surface. The air was filled with a gas that would burn if exposed to flame. The ground was unstable, constantly shifting and breaking. Storms the size of continents rolled across the surface. And yet life was everywhere. The planet was covered with it: plants, animals, and something else. Something that built structures and flew machines through the air. The lead warrior studied the readings. His scales tightened against his body, an automatic response to danger. This world is violent, he said quietly, more violent than Prime. His companions did not believe him. Nothing was more violent than Prime. That was impossible. But as they moved closer, the readings became clearer. The planet's star bombarded it with deadly radiation. The magnetic field was unstable. The water was everywhere, that corrosive liquid that could dissolve almost anything. The air was poison for most species. And the creatures that lived there, they were small, soft, no scales, no claws, no armor. Yet they had survived. They had not just survived. They had conquered their world. They had built cities and machines and weapons. Sent a message back to High Command. It contained only 4 words. We need to investigate. On the station, read the message and felt something cold move through his chest. He did not know what it was. He had never felt it before. Later, he would learn its name. It was called doubt. Captain Park was running when the alarm sounded. Not running away from something, just running. He did it every morning 20 kilometers along the coast near. The sea air filled his lungs as his feet hit the ground in a steady rhythm. He had been running like this since he was 12 years old. His body was built for it. Long legs, strong heart, lungs that could work for hours without rest. His communication device beeped. He slowed down and checked the message. His eyes went wide. 30 minutes later, he stood in the command center of the Korean Space Defense Force Base. Around him, screens showed data that no one had ever seen before. An alien ship was approaching Earth. It would land in 6 hours. This is not a drill, said General Moon, his commanding officer. We have confirmed contact. 3 life forms on board. They are heading toward the Korean peninsula. Looked at the ship on the screen. It was shaped like a blade, sharp and dangerous. Everything about it spoke of violence. Why here? He asked. Unknown, but you are our first contact team leader. Your job is to meet them when they land. Nodded. He had trained for this his whole career. He never actually believed it would happen. He gathered his team quickly. Lieutenant Minyu was his second in command. They had served together for 8 years. Minyu was shorter than but twice as wide, all of it muscle. He had been Special Forces before joining the Space Defense Unit. His mind worked like a computer, always calculating, always planning. Doctor was there. She was small with bright eyes that never stopped moving. She spoke 4 languages and had written 3 books on theoretical alien life. Now she would meet the real thing. Sergeant Sara was their combat medic. She had served in 3 different conflict zones. She had seen terrible things and survived all of them. Nothing scared her anymore. At least, that was what she told herself. They flew to the landing zone in a transport helicopter. The area had been cleared. Military units surrounded the perimeter but stayed out of sight. The plan was to appear peaceful but prepared. Remember, told his team as they waited, we do not know what we are dealing with. Stay calm. Do not show fear. Do not attack unless attacked first. And if they attack first, Minyu asked. Looked at his old friend. Then we defend ourselves. The ship came down like a falling star. It hit the ground hard, sending dust and dirt flying in all directions. The engine screamed, then went silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened. The first alien stepped out and understood immediately why the universe might be a dangerous place. It was huge, 8 feet tall at least. Its body was covered in scales that looked like black armor. It had 4 arms and claws that could tear through metal. Its eyes glowed red in the sunlight. When it breathed, smoke came from its nose. Behind it came 2 more, equally terrifying. Felt his heart beat faster. His body wanted to run. Every instinct told him to flee from this predator. But he had trained his body to obey his mind, not the other way around. He took a deep breath and walked forward. Activated her translation device. It was experimental technology designed to decode any language. No one knew if it would actually work. The lead alien looked down at the small creatures approaching him. They were so tiny, so soft. No scales, no claws, no protection of any kind. Easy prey. Yet they walked toward him without running away. Strange. He opened his mouth and roared. It was a greeting of dominance, a sound that could shatter glass and collapse the lungs of weaker creatures. Every species they had met before had fallen to their knees or fled in terror. The humans winced. They covered their ears, but they did not fall, they did not run. Blinked tears from his eyes. The sound had hurt. His ears were ringing, but he remained standing. Welcome to Earth, he said, his voice steady. We come in peace unless you do not. The translation device worked, heard the words in his own language. He turned to his companions. This had never happened before. A prey species had just threatened them. Stepped forward, her eyes bright with curiosity. We have prepared a place for discussion. There is food and water. Will you join us? Water looked at the female human. She was offering them water. On Prime, water was rare and precious. Most species in the galaxy needed it to survive, but they rarely drank it. To offer water was considered either a great honor or a great insult, depending on the situation. He could not tell which this was. We will speak, said finally, but know this, they do not bow to anyone. Neither do we, said Minyu, stepping up beside his captain. Focused on the shorter human. This one was different. He stood like a warrior. His body was tense, ready for combat, decided to test him. He moved forward quickly, using all 4 arms to grab Minyu. It was a dominance display, meant to lift the smaller creature off the ground and show him who was in control. What happened next changed everything. Minyu did not freeze. He did not scream. His body moved without thinking, years of training taking over. He grabbed one of his arms, twisted his body, and threw the massive alien over his shoulder. Hit the ground hard. Dust exploded around him. He lay there for a moment, unable to understand what had just happened. A creature half his size, with no claws or scales, had thrown him to the ground using nothing but technique. The other 2 warriors raised their weapons. His team raised theirs. For a terrible moment, it seemed like violence was about to begin. Then laughed. It was a horrible sound, like metal scraping against stone, but it was laughter. He stood up slowly, looking at Minyu with new eyes. You are not prey, he said. "What are you?" Minyu helped steady his weapon, then turned back to the alien. "We are human, and we do not go down easy." The tension slowly faded. The warriors lowered their weapons. Something had shifted. They no longer looked at the humans like food. They looked at them like they were not sure what they were looking at. Approached with a container of water. "You must be thirsty after your journey. Please drink." Took the container. The water was cold and clean. He drank deeply. It was the freshest water he had ever tasted. "Your world," he said slowly, "what is it called?" "Earth." "How dangerous is it?" Smiled. It was a gentle smile, the kind you give to someone who does not understand. "Very dangerous. Everything here can kill you. The weather, the animals, even the plants. But we have learned to survive." Looked around. The sun was bright and warm. A gentle wind blew across the grass. Birds sang in the distance. It seemed peaceful. But he could feel it now. The radiation from the sun pressing against his scales. The oxygen in the air, so reactive it could feed fires. The water everywhere, that dangerous solvent that could destroy so many materials. These soft creatures lived here. They thrived here. He needed to report to High Commander immediately. "We must contact our leaders," said. "This meeting is more important than we knew." Nodded. "We will provide you with communication equipment. And please take more water. We have plenty." As the warriors walked toward the communication tent, Sara moved close to. "What do you think?" she asked quietly. Watched the massive aliens drinking Earth water like it was the finest wine. "I think the universe just got a lot more interesting." That night, a message was sent across the stars. It reached the station called Eternal Dawn in 3 days. High Commander read it 17 times. For the first time in 3,000 years, the had found something that confused them. And confusion, knew, was the first step toward fear. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Every representative sat frozen in their seats. On the main screen, data scrolled past in numbers and symbols that most of them could not understand. But they understood the fear on its face. They had never seen fear on it before. Vex stood at the center of the room. He was different from most. Where others were warriors, he was a scientist. His scales were lighter, his body thinner. He had spent his life studying planets and species. He had classified hundreds of worlds. Nothing had ever prepared him for this. "Let me explain again," he said, his voice careful and measured. "The planet called Earth has been fully analyzed. Our initial readings were correct. I have checked them 17 times. Ambassador leaned forward, his eyes reflecting the light from the screens. "And your conclusion?" Vex took a deep breath. "Earth is a Category 11. The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted and screamed. Some fled toward the exits. Collapsed into a puddle on his seat, his gel body losing all shape from shock. Slammed his fist against his armrest. The sound was like thunder. Everyone went silent. "Explain," he commanded. Vex brought up new images on the screen. Earth appeared, blue and green and beautiful. "It looks peaceful," Vex said. "This is a lie. The planet is trying to kill everything on it at all times." He showed them the data. The star bombards the surface with ultraviolet radiation. Without the magnetic field, all life would die. But the magnetic field is unstable. It shifts and changes. Sometimes it weakens and lets more radiation through. New images appeared. Volcanoes erupting, earthquakes splitting the ground, massive waves destroying coastlines. The planet's crust is broken into pieces that constantly move and crash into each other. This creates earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. The destruction happens constantly. More images, hurricanes spinning across oceans, lightning storms that stretched across continents, tornadoes tearing through cities. The weather is extremely violent. Storms can form anywhere at any time. The temperature swings between burning heat and freezing cold. In some places, both happen in the same day. The representatives watched in horror. Their own were gardens compared to this. But the most dangerous thing, Vex continued, is the water. He showed them the oceans, vast, endless bodies of liquid covering most of the planet. Water is a universal solvent. It destroys almost everything it touches given enough time. This planet is 70% covered in it. The creatures there do not just tolerate water, they need it. They drink it every day. They bathe in it. They swim in it for fun. Stood up slowly. Prime is Category 9, the highest classification. You are saying this planet is 2 levels above us. Yes, High Commander, and there is more. Vex changed the display to show Earth's creatures. Lions and tigers, sharks and crocodiles, snakes and spiders. Each one was a perfect killing machine. The planet is filled with apex predators, creatures with teeth, claws, and venom that can kill in seconds. They exist in every environment: land, sea, air, underground, and in the trees. There is no safe place on this world. He paused. His next words would change everything. But none of these creatures rule the planet. The humans do. The screen showed images of humans. They looked so small, so fragile. No armor, no natural weapons. Soft skin that could be cut by a blade of grass. How? Asked, speaking the question everyone was thinking. Vex brought up new data. They are persistence predators. They do not have speed or strength, but they can run. Not fast, but far. They can run for hours, days even. They would chase prey until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it. Images showed ancient humans hunting, following animals across endless plains, never stopping, never giving up. Their bodies are designed for endurance. They sweat to control their temperature, allowing them to keep moving when other creatures must rest. Their joints are built for long-distance travel. Their hearts can beat for over 100 years without stopping. Sat back down slowly. Persistence predators, we have heard of such things, but they are usually weak. Usually, yes, but humans are different. They are also tool users. They did not need claws because they made knives. They did not need fangs because they made spears. They did not need armor because they made shields. And then they made something no other species on their world could make. The screen showed fire. They tamed fire. On a planet with an atmosphere filled with oxygen, they learned to control the most dangerous element. They used it to cook food, to stay warm, to light the darkness. Fire changed everything for them. More images: humans building houses, humans creating machines, humans walking on their own moon. They went from caves to cities in less than 10,000 years. They split the atom. They cured diseases that killed millions. They flew through space using controlled explosions. Their advancement is faster than any species we have ever recorded. Vex paused and looked directly at. But the most frightening thing about humans is not their bodies or their tools. It is their minds. The screen showed soldiers carrying wounded comrades, doctors treating sick strangers, parents protecting children, communities rebuilding after disasters. They form bonds with each other, with other species, with machines, with ideas. They call it love or friendship or loyalty. We do not have words for it in our language. They will die for creatures that are not even their own kind. They adopt animals as family members. They risk everything for strangers. Had reformed his body enough to speak. That sounds nice, kind even. No, Vex said firmly. It is terrifying because it means they will never stop fighting. If you threaten something they have bonded with, they will come for you. They will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will keep coming until you are destroyed or they are dead. And even then, others will come to avenge them. The chamber was completely silent. They also consume poisons for enjoyment. This broke the silence. Several representatives made sounds of disbelief. It is true, Vex continued. They drink alcohol, which is a toxin that kills cells. They eat capsaicin, a chemical that causes pain. They consume caffeine, a stimulant that would stop the hearts of most species. And they do this because they like how it feels. Thought about the water the humans had offered his warriors. Clean, fresh water, given freely, while their world tried to kill them with every breath. "What is their threat level?" he asked quietly. Vex hesitated. "Unknown. Our models do not apply to them. They could be the greatest allies we ever find, or the most dangerous enemies. There is no middle ground with a species like this." Ambassador spoke into the silence. "They are sending a diplomatic delegation. They will arrive in 3 days." Every eye turned to him. "A delegation, they are coming here." "Yes, they say they want peaceful cooperation. They have asked to address the council." Stood up again. His mind was racing. 3,000 years of dominance. 3,000 years of being the most feared species in the galaxy. And now these small, soft creatures from a nightmare world were coming to talk. "We will receive them," he said finally. "We will see what these humans want." But inside he was already planning, already calculating. The had ruled through strength and fear. If another species was stronger, more fearless, more relentless, everything could change. 3 days later the human ship arrived. It was small compared to vessels, sleek and efficient without decoration or threat displays. Admiral Shin stood at the front of the delegation. He was older, with gray hair and a face marked by years of difficult decisions. Beside him walked Doctor, Earth's chosen diplomat. She was calm and smiling, as if walking into a chamber full of alien species was something she did every day. Every eye watched them enter. Every sensor scanned them. Every mind tried to understand how such fragile creatures could be so dangerous. Doctor approached the central platform. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many species as she could. Then she smiled warmly. "Hello," she said simply. "We are humans. We come from Earth, and we are very happy to meet all of you. We look forward to peaceful cooperation and mutual benefit." Her words were gentle. Her tone was kind, but notice something else. She was not afraid. None of them were afraid. And that, more than anything else, told him everything he needed to know. The planet was called Seven. It was a neutral world owned by no one, used only for tests and trials. The jungle covered everything. Trees grew so thick that sunlight barely reached the ground. Creatures with too many teeth hunted in the shadows. The air was hot and wet and filled with insects that could poison you with a single bite. Had chosen this place carefully. If the humans were truly what Vex claimed, they would survive here. If they were pretending to be strong, they would die. 72 hours, announced to both teams. Cross the jungle, reach the extraction point on the other side. The team that arrives first wins. Captain stood with his 4 team members. Minyu was checking his weapons. Sara was organizing medical supplies. Private Han was the youngest, only 22 years old, eager to prove herself. Corporal Lee was examining the jungle with calm eyes. He was their explosives expert, though he hoped he would not need those skills here. Across from them stood 6 elite warriors. Each one was massive, covered in dark scales, armed with claws that could cut through steel. They were the best of the best. They had conquered dozens of worlds together. "This is not a battle," Admiral said, standing beside, "but it is a test of character. Show them who we are." Nodded, he understood. This was not about winning or losing. It was about showing the galaxy what humans were made of. The signal was given. Both teams moved into the jungle from opposite sides. They charged forward like a wave of destruction. They tore through the vegetation, their scales protecting them from thorns and branches. They did not care about noise or tracks. They were apex predators. Nothing on this world could threaten them. The humans moved differently. They walked carefully, studying the environment, looked at the plants and identified which ones were safe to eat. Sora collected water from large leaves, purifying it with tablets from her pack. They built a shelter before the first night, covering themselves with leaves and branches. "We are being too slow," said nervously. "They are probably halfway across by now." "Speed is not the goal," replied. "Survival is. Let me tell you something about they are used to being the strongest. They do not think about preparation because they have never needed to. That will be their weakness." Night fell quickly. The jungle came alive with sounds. Creatures screamed in the darkness. Things moved through the trees above them. The humans stayed in their shelter, taking turns keeping watch. Then the insects came. A swarm of flying creatures, each one as big as a thumb, with stingers that could inject deadly venom. They attacked anything with warm blood, driven mad by hunger. The sleeping in the open were protected by their scales. The insects could not pierce their armor. They watched the swarm pass over them without concern. The humans saw the swarm coming on their sensors, immediately started gathering dried leaves and branches. Within minutes, he had built a fire. The flames rose into the darkness. The insects saw the light and felt the heat. Fire was something they had never encountered. Their primitive brains screamed danger. They fled in all directions, avoiding the human camp entirely. From a distance, they watched the orange glow through the trees. "They control fire," one warrior said quietly. "On a planet they have never seen before, they found fuel and created flame." The second day was harder. The sun rose and turned the jungle into an oven. The humidity was brutal. Water evaporated from everything. The built for harsh environments still found themselves struggling. Their scales were designed for prime, where water was rare. Here, they lost moisture too quickly. "We need to find water," one of the warriors said. His voice was rough, his throat dry. They searched but found only small puddles filled with parasites. Drinking that water would make them sick. They pushed forward, hopping to find a stream. The humans found the stream first. It ran clear and cold through a rocky area. Sora tested the water, then purified it to be safe. They filled their containers and drank deeply. "Should we wait for asked. "If they do not find water, they could die." Looked at her, he saw the concern in her eyes. "We will see how they are doing. If they need help, we will provide it." "But they are our competitors." "They are living beings, that comes first." They continued through the jungle. The extraction point was getting closer. But as night fell again, Minyu held up his hand for silence. "I hear something," he whispered. They listened. In the distance something was roaring, not the roar of something else, something bigger. "Predator attack," said the camp. They moved quickly through the darkness, following the sounds of battle. When they arrived, they saw something that would stay with them forever. A massive creature, looking like a combination of a bear and a lizard, was attacking the warriors. It was 20 feet long with claws as big as swords. Two were down, bleeding badly. The others were fighting, but the creature was too strong, too fast. Minyu raised his weapon but stopped him. "We go in together, draw its attention, give the time to regroup." They moved as a unit, threw a flash grenade that exploded in the creature's face. While it was blinded, Sora ran to the wounded and began treating their injuries, and Minyu attacked from opposite sides, hitting the creature with everything they had. The creature screamed in rage. It was not used to prey that fought back, saw her chance. The creature's neck was exposed. She fired 3 times, hitting the same spot. The creature stumbled. The remaining warriors saw what was happening. These tiny humans had entered a battle they could have avoided. They were risking their lives to help enemies. Who had been watching through a drone camera could not believe what he was seeing. The battle ended when the creature finally fled, wounded too badly to continue fighting. The warriors stood among the humans, breathing heavily. 2 of their own were badly hurt but alive because of Sora's quick medical work. "Why?" demanded through the communication channel. His voice was confused and angry. "You could have one. You could have left us to die and claimed victory. Looked up at the dark sky, knowing was watching. Where we come from, you do not leave anyone behind. Not friends, not rivals, not even enemies if they need help. This makes no sense. We were competing against you. Yes, and if you had needed help crossing a river or climbing a cliff, we would have helped with that too. Competition does not mean we want you dead. It means we both try our best. There is no honor in winning because your opponent died. Silence followed his words. The warriors looked at each other. They had fought alongside these humans. They had been saved by them. Nothing in their culture had prepared them for this. The third day, both teams traveled together. They were slower now, their wounded being carried by their companions. The humans did not complain or rush ahead. They matched their pace to the stopping when needed, sharing water and food. Sara continued treating the wounded, using human medical techniques that they had never seen. She stitched wounds closed instead of waiting for regeneration. She gave them medicines that reduced pain and prevented infection. "Your healing arts are strange," one said to her. "We usually just wait for our bodies to repair themselves." "That works when you have time," Sara replied. "We learn to help the process. When you are being chased by predators, you cannot wait weeks to heal." They reached the extraction point together, humans and walking side by side. The ships were waiting for them. Cameras recorded everything. Was there in person, having flown down to witness the arrival. He watched the two groups emerge from the jungle. His warriors looked exhausted but alive. The humans looked tired but satisfied. Approached the High Commander. He was small compared to, reaching only to the alien's chest. But he stood straight and met those red eyes without fear. "We completed the trial together," said. "I believe that means something." Stared at him for a long moment. 3,000 years of history weighed on his shoulders. They had never acknowledged another species as equals. They conquered. They dominated. They ruled. But these humans... Slowly lowered his head. It was a bow, small but unmistakable. A gesture No had given to another species since their rise to power. "You have earned respect," said quietly. "I do not understand you. I do not know if I ever will, but you have earned respect." Bowed back, that is all we wanted. Across the galaxy on 100 worlds, representatives watching the broadcast felt something shift. They had bowed. The universe would never be quite the same. 6 months had passed since the trial on 7. 6 months of changing relationships, new alliances, and growing trust between humans and... But the galaxy was about to face something that neither species could fight alone. The Hollow had awakened. It was old, older than the Empire, older than the Galactic Council. It was a machine intelligence that had been built millions of years ago by a species long extinct. Its purpose was simple: consume organic life, grow stronger, spread across the stars. The first 3 species it encountered had no chance. Their worlds went dark within days. Billions of lives ended. The Hollow's fleet grew larger with every conquest, building more ships from the wreckage of its victims. Now it was approaching 4, a colony world with 10 million inhabitants. If it fell, the Hollow would have a foothold in the heart of the Galactic Council's territory. General Nara stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship. She was 50 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had risen through the ranks by being smarter, faster, and more creative than anyone around her. Now she commanded the first joint human fleet in history. "The Hollow will arrive in 6 hours, her tactical officer reported. "Estimated enemy ships, 4,000. Nara studied the display. The numbers were bad. They had 200 ships total, half human and half. They were outnumbered 20 to 1. His face appeared on her communication screen. The High Commander had personally led his warriors to this battle. Whatever happened, he would face it alongside the humans. "My warriors are ready," said. "We will charge directly at the enemy and destroy as many as we can." Nara shook her head. That is exactly what the Hollow expects. It analyzes patterns. If we attack the way they always attack, it will predict our moves and counter them. Then what do you suggest? We do what humans do best. We improvise. The battle began 3 hours later when Hollow scouts appeared at the edge of the system. They were strange ships, made of black metal that seemed to absorb light. They moved without sound, without heat signatures, like ghosts sliding through space. They wanted to attack immediately. Their instincts screamed at them to charge, to fight, to destroy. But General Nara held them back. "Wait," she commanded. "Let them come to us. Let them think we are afraid." The Hollow fleet arrived in waves. Thousands of ships, each one controlled by a cold, artificial mind. They had no fear, no hesitation. They had destroyed entire civilizations. These 200 ships would be nothing. The first wave attacked the defensive line. Ships met them head-on, their warriors screaming battle cries as they fired every weapon they had. The fighting was brutal. Ships exploded on both sides. They were strong, but there were too many enemies. "Now," Nara said quietly, "Minyu, execute Plan 7. Lieutenant Minyu was no longer on small team. He now commanded a special operations unit of 50 humans, all trained for impossible missions. They had been hiding behind a small moon, waiting for this moment. Their target was not the Hollow fleet. It was the asteroid field nearby. "All units begin mining operations," Minyu ordered. Within minutes, they had planted explosives on dozens of asteroids, not to destroy them, but to move them. The explosions pushed the massive rocks toward the battle, creating a wall of debris that the Hollow had not anticipated. Ships crashed into the asteroids. Navigation systems failed as the rocks blocked sensors. The Hollow's perfect formations broke apart as they tried to avoid collision. "Phase 2, Nara commanded. "All human units engage with guerrilla tactics. Units protect the colony ships." The humans did not fight They did not charge directly at the enemy. They hid behind debris, attacked from unexpected angles, then disappeared before the Hollow could respond. It was chaotic, unpredictable, exactly the opposite of what the machine intelligence expected. Lee had been promoted to lead an engineering team. His specialty was turning ordinary things into weapons. Using parts from damaged ships, he created makeshift bombs that attached to Hollow vessels and exploded minutes later. The enemy could not predict when or where the next explosion would come. Sora commanded a medical frigate, moving through the battle to rescue wounded pilots from both species. Her ship had no weapons, but she refused to stay behind the lines. Twice, she flew directly into enemy fire to save damaged fighters. "Are you insane?" demanded over the radio after watching her rescue one of his warriors. "Probably," Sora replied calmly. "But that pilot is alive because I was insane." Had no response to that. The battle raged for hours. The Hollow adapted, changing tactics, trying to match the humans' unpredictability. But it could not. The machine minds were built on logic and patterns. Humans did not operate on logic. They operated on stubbornness, creativity, and a refusal to accept defeat. Private Han, no longer a private, now a sergeant, held a defensive position on a small moon base. Her unit was supposed to retreat 30 minutes ago, but reinforcements had not arrived. The Hollow had sent ground troops, mechanical soldiers with weapons built into their arms. "We have to fall back," one of her soldiers said. "No," replied. "Those machines get past us, they reach the evacuation ships. 3,000 civilians are still loading." She was wounded. Her arm was bleeding badly. Her ammunition was almost gone, but she had found a broken blade from a fallen warrior and she was still fighting. For 6 hours she held that position. 6 hours of constant combat, of bleeding and pain and exhaustion. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found her standing in a field of destroyed machines, the broken blade still in her hand. The who saw her called her Thornless Blade. It was the highest honor a non could receive, a warrior without natural weapons who fights like a legend. But the battle was still not won. The Hollow had a central node, a command ship that coordinated all its forces. As long as it survived, the machine fleet would keep fighting. I have located the node, Nara announced, but reaching it requires flying through the densest part of their formation. Survival probability is less than 2%. Silence followed. Everyone knew what that meant. It was a suicide mission. Before anyone could volunteer, Captain Park moved his ship forward. I am already moving. Do not try to stop me. No, his voice came over the radio. She was on one of the science vessels studying the Hollow's technology. There has to be another way. There is not, replied. His voice was calm. He had already accepted what needed to happen. Tell I said goodbye. Tell the team I am proud of every single one of them. His ship accelerated toward the enemy formation. Hollow vessels turned to intercept him. Fire came from every direction. His shields failed. His hull was breached. Warning alarms screamed in his ears. But he kept going. The central node grew larger on his screen. It was massive, a ship the size of a city, covered in weapons and sensors. If he could reach its core, his ship's explosion would destroy it. Was crying now. See you on the other side, he said quietly. His ship hit the central node's main reactor. The explosion was visible from across the system. For a moment, a new star was born where the node had been. Then silence. The Hollow fleet stopped moving. Without the central node, the individual ships lost coordination. They drifted aimlessly, easy targets. Within hours, the remaining enemy vessels were destroyed. The battle was over. 4 was saved. But the celebration was muted. Personally led the search for his escape pod. They found it tumbling through debris, barely functioning, its pilot unconscious and barely alive. When carried the small human into the medical bay, his hands were gentle. This creature had done what legends spoke of. He had charged alone into certain death to save others. Will he live? Asked the doctors. They were not sure. His injuries were severe, but humans, they had learned, were very hard to kill. 3 days later, opened his eyes. He was wrapped in bandages, connected to machines, and in more pain than he had ever experienced. But he was alive. Was sitting beside his bed, holding his hand. Her eyes were red from crying, but she was smiling. You idiot, she said softly. Tried to laugh, but it hurt too much. Did we win? Yes, we won. Good, then it was worth it. Outside the medical bay stood guard. He had not left since was brought in. When asked why, he gave a simple answer. He is a warrior. Warriors protect each other. The universe had changed. The Hollow was defeated. The Inhumans had fought together as equals, and a new era was beginning.